A new poll on the government shutdown doesn't hold great news for anyone in Washington, with Americans giving low marks to how both sides are handling the ordeal, with approval numbers in the 20s and low 30s. The poll also finds few Americans find either Democrat or Republican positions are worth shutting the government down at all. Bill and Susan Del Percio are back with me. So, Susan, it's no shocker that people aren't happy about the government being at a standstill, but the question is how to get it moving again.
Well, the only way there are a few ways it could move again. The Democrats can say, I'm done and fold in the next hour, and the government will move again. I don't see that happening, and I think that would be really bad politics and bad policy. At the end of the day, the Democrats are probably going to have to hold out about 3 weeks, Alex. I say that because that's when between the notification of insurance premiums going up starting now and actually getting really close to the date they go into effect of November 1st, that's how long the Democrats have to hold, because Republicans will not want to own those premiums at the end of the day. Your previous guest, the Congresswoman, talked about premiums going up $15,000 per family. That is something.
Somebody makes 80,000. I mean, the House is like, wow, the percentage.
Health care is a Democrat issue. They own it much more so than the Republicans. The Republicans want to get rid of the Affordable Health Care Act. Democrats want to keep it. The only thing Republicans who supported Donald Trump and Republicans don't want to happen more than getting rid of the ACA is for themselves to not be able to afford their health insurance. And that is something that the Republicans have to look at, because when you look at the 2024 election, we saw a lot of shifts in who supported Donald Trump and the Republicans, and more of their constituencies benefit from the Affordable Health Care Act.
So, Basil, Trump and Republicans, they're getting slightly more of the blame than Democrats, 39% compared to 30%. But a third say they blame both equally. So can Democrats really claim that the public is behind them? Or, to Susan's point, will it take another 3 weeks or so?
Well, I think Susan's right on point about that. Unfortunately, Democrats do need to hold out a little bit longer, and it's tough. There are reports about some infighting, about the messaging, and so on and so forth. And quite frankly, the messaging really is on the money. If there isn't a dashboard for every congressional district about how your healthcare costs are going to increase, there should be one, because that's the most compelling story. I don't care what you do on social media. That is the story. I think Democrats also need to hammer home two additional points that the Congresswoman made earlier. One, that the Republicans actually do control government, so they could actually put a stop to this whenever they want. And also, maybe the Republicans would fare a little better if they weren't so damn cavalier at the beginning of the administration about firing people in the first place. When you had Elon Musk going around with a chainsaw, delighting in the fact that government was being cut and people were losing their jobs, you know what? Maybe they'd be a little believable on being fiscally efficient, but that isn't the case. It feels punitive. It feels dismissive of people's concerns and the real healthcare issues that people have, particularly in women's health. And it sticks their nose in or sticks their thumb in the eye of the rural voters that supported them with the hospitals and clinics that end up closing.
Heard me ask the speaker this question. Realistically, how does this end? From where you sit as someone who looks very closely at the dynamics in Congress as well as the White House, it does just feel this week like we're starting off with more of the same. Where is the inflection point for this to turn, to change, or is there one?
One or the other party would have to have its base change its mind. Right? Republicans, their base, they're very happy to have the government shut down. In fact, we've seen that time after time over the course of the last 30 years or so. And the Democrats are banking, at least partially, on their reputation for believing that there should be a functioning government and wanting to spend more money on government versus the longstanding Republican reputation for wanting to cut government. Folks may remember Elon Musk standing on a stage with a chainsaw earlier this year, in terms of the desire to cut not only government, but the people who work in it. So, Allie, I don't know what the over-under is in the Capitol, but there does not seem to be any easy endpoint in sight because it's going to be a long time before either the Democratic base or the Republican base decides this isn't what they want. And the idea that Chuck Schumer, and I think that he's influenced personally by the possibility of a primary, his home state politics, but the whole rest of the Senate Democratic caucus isn't worried about an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez primary, and there is very little movement on the Democratic side in the Senate.
I think that you're completely right when you talk about the tolerance between both bases for a government shutdown, because it shows in some way that their side is right, their side is fighting. And I think that there is definitely a permission structure in our politics for that right now. I want to talk specifically about the role that Trump plays in this shutdown, because you'll see a little bit later on Morning Joe, I probed Speaker Johnson a lot about that. But when you talk to your sources in the White House, how are they thinking about this moment, the way that Trump might come in as a deal maker, which we know he loves to do?
I have not heard anybody suggest that Donald Trump is going to come in and say, like, let's have an end to the shutdown. He obviously is enjoying the moment. I mean, you just saw the clip of him there. This is something he wants. It's a fight he believes he's going to win. He has the bully pulpit. The president always has the bully pulpit. It's much easier for him to command attention, even easier than most presidents. So I think he's perfectly happy with this. And in fact, looks to be looking forward to using it as an excuse to do a whole lot of other things that he already wanted to do. For instance, slash the size of the federal government, not just, again, not dollars, people. And one of the reasons the Democrats don't want to vote to give him more money is that his administration continues to use money for things that Congress hasn't appropriated it for, and also to not spend money that Congress has appropriated. So they're kind of like, well, why would we give you another check?
I think that's exactly right. You're hitting on so many of the dynamics here. One of the things that I asked the speaker about, and I want to play this for you and get your reaction on how he answered, was the role that Trump has played in his speakership. I want the control room to just play that for us. Your colleague Thomas Massie, though, has said that you're only speaker for as long as President Trump wants you to be. Does he have a point?
No, he doesn't have a point. We've been demonstrating this over and over. I've been speaker for 2 years now. It's not a job I ever aspired to, frankly. Didn't know I'd have it. But I'm trying to keep steady hands at the wheel in very turbulent times. I'm trying to work with, in good faith, with people on both sides of the aisle, and we've done that. And if there was someone else that wanted to be speaker, I'd hand them the gavel. But right now, we've got to guide the country through these dire straits.
A few different reasons that I ask you about this, because what I heard in the speaker's answer there was, I think this new confidence that he's trying to project of putting distance between his own power on Capitol Hill and the power that President Trump has shown that he exercises specifically over the House Republican conference. I wonder what you hear in an answer like that. And I think the important thing to note is they changed the motion to vacate rules, I think, thank God for many of us in Congress, because there's always one person who's mad about something. So his job is not imminently in danger. But I thought the way that he was talking about the president there was really interesting.
Yeah, I agree, Allie. It's such an important interview, such a valuable interview. You did a really good job getting him to open up about his thinking. And to your point about what's important about his thinking is he is trying to establish himself as somebody outside of Donald Trump. Yet Donald Trump is the reason that he's there in the first place. He's the reason that Johnson continues to have the support of the Republican conference. And if Donald Trump chose to pull his support for Mike Johnson would be gone. I do want to note that there are other people that would like to be speaker, maybe not all 435 members of the House, and that Donald Trump's not the only person with a veto over Mike Johnson. There's an election on November 3rd, 2026, and it may be that voters decide that they don't want Mike Johnson to be speaker by throwing Republicans out of control of the House. That said, if he continues to do what Trump wants and the voters choose Republicans to lead the House, he's going to continue to be speaker for as long as he likes.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I think that we ask later on in that interview about the role that Trump could play in potentially ending this shutdown or any negotiations. But to your point, the White House seems to be relishing this political moment and certainly making hay out of it, both the way the president is speaking about it, the moves that Russ Vought is making out of the Office of Management and Budget, and then, of course, the social media presence that we have all seen many, many times. We are going to see more of this interview a little bit later in our hour, and then the full unedited version is going to come up during Morning Joe. But for now,
as a result of this.
So let me ask you both this, because it all comes amid the splintering within the Republican sphere. NBC reports popular male podcasters and their fans are starting to turn against Trump. Meanwhile, you have Laura Loomer, of course, a close ally of the president, who's been going after MAGA mainstays that she accuses of secretly working against Trump. She's named Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Of course, Greene has broken with the GOP on various issues lately, but Trump gathered a broad coalition in 2024. Is it looking like a house of cards? Quick answers first to you, Susan.
Yes, it is looking as a house of cards because there is such a broad coalition. Trump brought a lot of different folks to the table, and that's who got him elected. You can't just be a party of one Laura Loomer and decide she's going to call all the shots. Otherwise, it falls.
Basil, last word to you.
Absolutely right. Yes, House of Cards, because they brought in a lot of people because they needed their votes to win. And now you can't control what you brought. That's their problem, and they own it.
Trump's entire winning day strategy is starting to look like one long losing streak. And the new polls are making that crystal clear. Americans are exhausted. The government is shut down, the economy is teetering and wobbling, and Trump still treats the presidency like a cable show he controls from his golf cart. The poll numbers say it all. Approval ratings for both parties are in the gutter, with Republicans, led by Trump's shadow influence, carrying most of the blame. But here's the thing. Voters no longer have the patience for endless political games. They're tired of shutdowns, blame-shifting, chest-thumping, and rallies and speeches about fiscal discipline, while paychecks for government workers vanish and ICE gets billions of dollars instead. The country needs real leadership here. Instead, Trump fuels chaos, cheers from the sidelines, and he's calling this all strategy. He avoids solving the shutdown because he enjoys the spotlight it brings and because he can blame the Democrats. Every crisis becomes this performance. Every failure, another headline to twist, to someone else to blame. Even Republican analysts are beginning to say this pretty outright. Trump's coalition is splintering. The same influencers and podcasters who once called him a genius now roll their eyes at his endless feuds and lack of progress. And when loyalists like Laura Loomer turn on MAGA's own stars, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's clear that the movement is kind of tearing itself apart at the seams. Trump built his base on rage and loyalty to him, yet loyalty without results kind of fractures the base, and it can make things collapse pretty quickly. The entire structure he created is starting to crumble under its own weight. Meanwhile, the party of fiscal responsibility has dragged the country into another shutdown for the sake of political theater. This will cost more billions of dollars. Healthcare costs keep climbing. Families worry about losing coverage. And rural hospitals, the ones serving the majority of Trump's own supporters, struggle to stay open, and a lot of the time they just close. These are real people, real jobs, real lives. Trump and his circle treat it all as part of the act. Do you think he cares about any of these people? And let's be honest, when approval numbers sink into the 30s and 20s, that's not just something that goes on the media. That is a widespread problem because of a leadership failure. Americans recognize hypocrisy instantly. They see a man who claims to fight for workers spending his weekends golfing, while federal employees wonder how they'll pay rent. They see a self-proclaimed deal maker who refuses to negotiate, someone whose only approach to governing and government is to break it and then blame others for the damage. Trump keeps promising that every day will be a winning day. We're going to win so much. You're going to be tired of winning. Yet his version of winning always leaves everyone else paying the price. The shutdown harms teachers, nurses, veterans, normal citizens, federal workers, everyone but him. The polls reveal more than just political fatigue. They show moral exhaustion. Americans are done watching one man treat democracy like his personal casino. And if these numbers mean anything, the House always wins, until the dealer runs out of cards.